Welcome back to Sports Night. Our second guest on the show, has been a sports writer and columnist for the Charlotte Observer since 1994. Grew up in Spartanburg, went to UNC Chapel Hill, and now calls Charlotte home for a long time. Scott Fowler, good friend of the show. Scott, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Bill. Thanks for having me back.
Now, this is an Olympic year, and I know you've already started writing some pre-Olympic stories. I always find this fascinating that we jump on gymnastics and all these other sports that we don't care a hoot about for 3 years. And all of a sudden, here we are, and a lot of names and faces and great stories that we'll learn about over the next couple of months.
You're right. It's an amazing phenomenon. Really 3 years and 49 weeks, so you don't care about them much. And then there's this 3-week interval where they are the biggest thing in the world. I mean, this thing is enormous. 200 countries, the TV audience bigger than anything else we'll see all year when you look worldwide, and it's an odd thing, swimming, track and field. Suddenly, regular people are talking about the 400-meter hurdles for women.
Right.
And so it's a great thing. Actually, one of my most favorite things to cover. It's just cool. It's so weird, and it's just I really kind of buy into the purity of it, even though not so much for the NBA part of it, but a lot of these people, swimmers and archery people and stuff, they don't make any money. They're just out there just because they love it.
How do you approach an Olympics? Do you have to do a lot of homework? Are you kind of guided by, especially when you're over there? How do you kind of follow the games? Is it local stories or is it more national?
Well, that's a good question. Since I'm writing it for the Charlotte Observer, and we're sending 3 people actually, myself, a photographer, and then also one editor who will work for kind of all our papers that McClatchy owns, that the Observer's part of that network. I do everything local I can do, but you have to kind of spread out beyond that, because locally, Charlotte and the Charlotte region at best maybe will have somewhere between 6 and 10 athletes, maybe something like that, but the U.S. team will ultimately be the home team. So I'll cover a lot of U.S. events, whether or not anybody from Charlotte's in them or not, because really that's the one place where everyone unites and watches the U.S. and talks about whether they win or lose. So I do a lot of American-oriented events, and an occasional wild card kind of thing. I like to go to ping pong or something that's just kind of out of strange, but I really like swimming and track and field. Those are the 2 I like there the most, and what I usually do the most of. I'm not so crazy about gymnastics because I don't understand the scoring system well enough to really try to be an expert. But it's a ton of homework. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Much more than covering an NFL game, because who knows beyond Michael Phelps, any American swimmer?
Right.
Could you name one?
No. No. Johnny Weissmuller, is he still around?
Yeah.
Tarzan?
Yeah. 70 years ago, he was right on there for you.
Mark Spitz, is he trying again? I don't know. It was funny because I remember I was at the '84 Summer Games, and I was sitting in the Los Angeles Coliseum when Carl Lewis won his 4th gold medal. So I pick up the phone. It wasn't a cell phone. They didn't have cell phones back then.
No internet, yeah.
Nothing. I was working for UPI Radio. I call up the desk to feed them a voice report so they can send it out to the network. And I call the guy on the phone. I said, I'm ready with the story on Lewis. He goes, what story? And I said, well, he just won his 4th gold medal. And the guy says, well, ABC's running something else. They tape delayed it. You can't get away with that stuff anymore. Although with the time difference in China, how does that affect the way you do things?
Well, that's a good question. Before ABC or NBC, whoever had the Olympics, could tape delay things forever. But now with the internet, there's much more live stuff. Matter of fact, the swimming finals in China will be held in the morning, which is the opposite of what they usually do. And the prelims are at night, only for an American TV audience.
Wow.
So swimming's different, but a lot of the other stuff will just be run on a weird schedule. Events will be occurring at 10 and 11 a.m. Eastern time, the finals of the 100-meter dash or something. So it is going to be weird. China's, I think, 12 hours ahead of us, so that'll be strange.
All right, look forward to reading your stuff there. Scott has a Q&A session that he has. If you go to charlotte.com and follow his name, you'll eventually see you can ask a question to Scott and he answers it. I went there recently and I was fascinated by the discussion going on between you and a number of readers about the fans at Panther games. Wine and cheese crowd. They don't let me stand up and cheer. Right. They kicked my buddy out because he was standing and cheering. Right. This was a whole slew. This went on for a long time, for about a month. What was your reaction to some of these what these people were saying?
It's really interesting. There's these two very dissimilar factions. You know, there's the crowd who bought a lot of the PSLs and is maybe a little bit older, and you know, as the other guys will say, the ones who wear a pink shirt and khaki pants, you know, and show up in the second quarter, and then there's the other side, which is, you know, the kind of the beer swilling, want to take my shirt off and Jerry Richardson won't let me crowd. And they really, you know, they are at cross purposes in this Q&A now. And I know those are stereotypes, and that's not really the way everyone is, but there is a real sense of we've got to be a better crowd in Panther Stadium, get the home team fired up, versus the other guys who are like, let's let the home team fire us up, you know. It's not the fans' responsibility, it's the other way around. So I'm just kind of the referee. I don't even take a position on it. I just like to watch them battle back and forth. It is an odd dynamic, though, because I think Panther Stadium still is, you know, as you've been in it hundreds of times, very mediocre all told in terms of how good the NFL crowd is. It's okay, but it's not great, and so that's what a lot of the discussion's about.
The one thing I've noticed, however, because if the Panthers are getting beat in the fourth quarter, you see a lot of empty seats. Trust me, I've been in a number of stadiums the last couple of years doing national games for Westwood One, Kansas City, the Meadowlands, you name it. If your team's getting blown out, those people aren't hanging around.
They're gone too?
They're gone too. Oh, yeah. And you know, so that criticism, and I guess, you know, I think about the Panthers and their inability since '96. And Scott wrote a book. I'll do that plug. It's probably still out there somewhere. You're the Cat. He and Charles Chandler wrote a book about the '96 season, which to me was still, I know it wasn't as special as getting to the Super Bowl, but that cast of characters.
A little bit magic.
Yeah, it was really interesting. You know, this is they haven't had a really good home record, a solid home record, since that they were undefeated that year.
You're 96. Right. I think under John Fox, if I look this up correctly, there's something like 24-24. And on the road, they're like 27-21. This is just regular season. They have, you know, and they've been even better on the road in playoff games. It's very weird, but I think that's as much of it as anything. I kind of put the blame, if so to speak, on the Panthers themselves. I think if the Panthers go 7-1 or 8-0 this season, that home crowd's going to be terrific. But if they end up 4-4 at home, 3-5, then you know, you're going to see the same trickle away effect in the late third, early fourth.
Where are you in the Jake Delhomme? It's funny because when I was doing a talk show in town, when I was the voice of the team, boy, there were a lot of critics out there at Jake Delhomme. I think this city, the fan base, found out last year how important this guy is. And if he's going to, really the success of this franchise, I think this year depends a lot on his coming back and having a great year.
I totally agree with you. I think absence has made the heart grow fonder a little for Jake, but honestly, I've been in his corner, I suppose, for a long time. I frequently defended him in the paper, and certainly he's not perfect, but I think he's a kind of an A-, B+ NFL quarterback. He's not either one of the Manning brothers, probably, you know, and you could name 5 or 6 more, but I still think he's a top 10 to top 12 type NFL quarterback, plenty good to get you in the playoffs. But Matt Moore, you know, if you're going to give him a grade right now, I think it's got to be incomplete, even though he went 2-1 last year as a starter. I just don't know. I don't think really without Jake, a healthy Jake, I don't think this team will make the playoffs. With a healthy Jake, I think they have a pretty good shot.
A couple other things I want to get to. First, when App State beat Michigan last year, what a huge story that was nationally, and continues to be a story.
It does.
Especially in cities like Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, that's right.
But you went to Wofford and watched App State lose to Wofford. What was that whole atmosphere like?
That was it was one of my favorite events of last year. It was a totally under the radar game that no one remembers now because App State ends up winning their 3rd national title. So, you know, kudos to App State. But Wofford that day was fantastic. It was like one of the few times I'd ever gone to Spartanburg and saw a real game, you know, not just seen a bunch of practices like you and me used to sit through all the time. So, yeah, it was great. I mean, Wofford that day was better than anybody. You know, they couldn't be stopped. They scored like 42 points. And I love a little, you know, small town, small college sort of moment like that. To me, the Olympics is a little bit like that, too.
Right.
You got a little bit under-the-radar athletes, for the most part, who are so happy to be there. Just so happy to have their moment You know, I love writing stories like that. I love the drama of events like that, and that's what I look for a lot, you know, in my column. In the
And actually,
Observer.
the uniqueness of an athlete appreciating an interview with a member of the press.
Yeah,
Sometimes
instead of
that doesn't happen. That's
dodging
right.
you,
That's right.
they're like calling you back, or you know, standing there waiting for you to finish something else. You know,
Right.
so yeah, it's unusual.
But before I let you go, you also a year ago kind of, I'm not going to say you went the Tony Kornheiser route in writing lifestyle, but you did kind of do this. You wrote a series of articles. You became a father for the 4th time again. How much fun was that writing those stories?
Oh, it was great. Those were, you know, that material. I have 3 boys now and 1 girl, and they are 10 or under, all of them. So the material's just right there in front of you. You know, it's not. There's no research required. They keep me in stitches every day, you know, and literally themselves in stitches, you know, some of the time.
That's right.
Beating on each other all the time. But yeah, that's been great. You know, fortunately I have a flexible wife because the hours in this job are fun, but you know, very weird. In Beijing, I'll be gone for 3 weeks in a row, so it's you know, but it's great. We finally had a girl the last time,
right.
So the 4th
Georgia?
kid, Georgia, good memory. Georgia was our was the 4th time was a charm on that.
Scott, always a pleasure. Have a safe trip to China, and of course, we'll always want to do this again with you.
Thank you, Bill. Anytime.
Scott Fowler of the Charlotte Observer. By the way, we'd like to thank Mario's, the restaurant just a couple stores down from Charlie's Tobacco Outlet here off of Weddington Road, for supplying the food for the show tonight. You got to feed the press, guys. You got to feed the guests. So our thanks to Mario's. Our time is up. Thanks for being with us. I'm Bill Rosinski. Tune in again next time for another edition of Sports Night.